Hello everyone, welcome back to this week's gameplay edition of Playing from the Tips. I'm going to attempt to give a tip here on putting, which is something I've wanted to do since we started these, but I think by far the most challenging to try to explain in such a condensed amount of time. So we're going to keep it as simple and kind of top line as we can here. And what I want to talk about is at least figuring out the direction of your break. Some of them are obvious, but others not so much. So what you're going to need to do is use what's referred to as the worm cam. So you're in your putt, you go to your scout cam, you get all the way down to the floor, and you're looking at the horizontal lines that run across your screen and trying to line them up with the bottom of them, so you have a bit better of an idea of the angle and how much break there is in the direction, obviously. And you're going to scan each of these lines between your ball and the hole, and you're going to try to determine which direction it's breaking. Now these three little scale images are up here for a reason, because that's kind of how I visualize it in a way. I'm counting, or I'm not really counting the grid lines, but as I go through them between my ball and the hole, I'm thinking in my head, okay, left to right, left to right, left to right, right to left, and then just kind of intangibly thinking about the line of my ball. And that's a really important part of this too, is you have to read these lines along the path of your putt. If the right side of a grid line is breaking really hardly, but your ball is only going to roll on the left side, that right side doesn't really matter. So just keep in mind the path of your ball. So in terms of reading the actual grid lines, here's an example I took from earlier today. It's what I'd call kind of a linear break, right? Each of these lines is fairly consistent, fairly straight, just tilted. And it's obviously going to break left to right until we get to the end of the putt right there, where it looks like it's going to break right to left. But if we look at the path of the ball, we're starting it out to the left. It's going to break back in towards the hole. And those grid lines that, if you're putting it dead at the hole, might move it to the left, they're actually just going to straighten it out a little bit. And this, unfortunately for me, luckily it was a practice round, I misread that. I had it a little bit on the left side, and it straightened, and I did miss it left. This is a different type of putt. I don't have these categorized, but this is what I guess what I'd call a rounded line. So it's not as linear. It's kind of domed out where the pin is. We see plenty of these on the PGA Tour, and I'm sure you guys on the other tours do as well. Um, Especially with the slope behind the hole here, I'm trying to throw it out left and then let it just trickle back into the hole. I'm not trying to power it through a break or anything like that. But if you remember back to grade school, exponential curves on a graph, right? It's not a straight line. It's curved once it gets up towards the top. That's what I'm seeing when I look at a line that's like this, and I guess rounded is the best way that it can be described. Now here's a bit of a longer one where really, when I get to this distance, all I'm trying to do is figure out the net break and give myself an easy second putt. Making it is found money. One of the things you'll see in this putting line, as you're looking at the grid lines scroll through here, is there are a few of those quirky little jagged grid lines. So maybe the right third of it will be slanted up in one direction, but the middle and the left third will be flat, or maybe even tilted in the opposite direction, like that one right there. So again, it's really important to think about the path of your putt and where the ball is going to roll across these grid lines that you're putting. The other thing to look at with this putt in particular is there was a little more left to right break in terms of steepness of slope at the start when we get to these red and yellow uphill slopes towards the beginning of the putt. But despite the fact that the right to left break past this uphill wasn't as steep, there were more lines that were in that direction. So it kind of counterbalances itself. That's why you have to think about those scales that we talked about a second ago. This putt actually ended up being dead straight. I misread it again. I had a little bit left, and it ended up finishing a little bit left of the hole. So it takes practice. That's a bottom line understanding with any of this, is it's going to take practice to develop your feel. So if you take anything from this, you need to figure out the net break of your putts. It's not, well, I want to say it's very easy, but it's not terribly difficult to look at the scout cam, get down to the floor, and just look at the lines between your ball and the hole and figure out which general direction the ball is going to break. You obviously have to take into account a lot of other factors, but again, we're keeping this kind of on the top level of figuring out which direction it's going to break, and then you can start to develop your feel for how much it is going to break. And if I can give one giant takeaway from this, is reading the grid lines is great, and it'll give you more information than you had if you didn't. but you're going to get the most out of it if you think about where your ball is going to roll. I think that's one of the things that kind of gets overlooked from time to time from certain players. So anyhow, this is my attempt at explaining a really complex kind of feel-based strategy that I use in 5 minutes. And I hope at least a few of you can gather something from it. And hopefully we'll be back again next week with another gameplay edition of Playing from the Tips. Cheers.